Hello, and thanks for coming along to And We Have an Office Dog, the digital agency podcast where we talk to agency owner-directors and learn more about what makes them tick. From the things that make them similar to the things they'd rather have known sooner, where they've had success and where they've learned some hard lessons. All will be revealed with your host, Chris Simmons, the agency coach, and he'll be talking to a different awesome agency person in each episode, asking them 4 questions and seeing where the conversation takes us over the next 25 minutes. Okay, so let us begin. Over to you, Chris.
Thanks, voiceover guy. And on the podcast again, we have Andy from Adido. How are you doing?
I'm very well, Chris. Thanks for inviting me back on again.
Well, you were lucky to be back on again because the first time we tried to record this, you joined from the car. So,
apologies. I was trying my best, but it wasn't to be that day.
It wasn't, but we're here now. So, for those who are naughty and have skipped season 1 and don't know who you are still, tell us all about you, what your role is, and what Adido do.
What do Adido do? So we are still, I would say, a full-service digital marketing agency. And whilst that may sound a bit old or a bit crap these days, we genuinely are. We do have, I guess, 2 teams which cover website build, 2 very technical, very large scale. And we do have an in-house digital marketing team of SEO, PPC, and analytics. So that's what we do. This July the 1st, as well as it being Google Analytics 4-day, is also our 20th year of trading as a limited company. So a big milestone, and one that...
Can I have a party?
We haven't even talked about that yet. We're too busy doing work. But
that's great.
We'd like to try and do something to celebrate, certainly. So yeah, big milestone. And yeah, we're quite happy, I think, where we are at the moment. So things are reasonably good.
Awesome. And full service, like you say, websites and SEO, or is it what else is inside that mix?
The digital marketing team is predominantly search. We do some display work. We do some social paid ads. Someone asked me the other day, can you help me with my social posting? No, to me that's not really of that much value. It's a good brand activity, but it doesn't drive leads. Yeah. So it's about performance marketing, I guess, in a higher level nutshell.
So since we last spoke, what have been some of the kind of key developments inside the agency in the last year?
Well, we've hired a few more people. We've lost a few people. In the last 12 months, we've lost our biggest client, which has been a bit of a shock. Many agencies I've spoken to in the past have had 2 or 3 big clients that are 50-80% of their revenue. And over the years, we've always avoided that until about 3 years ago. We had a client that was about 30% of our revenue, tied up in one PO and one invoice. And end of last year, they went to a big pitch. We went in for the pitch. We didn't succeed in the pitch. And reading between the lines, I think there's some internal changes, politics going on, which meant we didn't get it. So this year, so then obviously been a big focus on pushing sales, pushing marketing, pushing our brand, if you like, in more people's faces in the nicest possible way, and be a bit more proactive with sales and marketing rather than having a bit of a nice comfort blanket of a nice big client giving us lots of work and lots of money repeatedly. So it's been a bit of a wake-up call, but one that I'm enjoying the challenge of trying to figure out how do we become more relevant to people, I guess.
Obstacles become opportunities, don't they? And it seems to be working because I see either you or Adido branded content almost everywhere at the minute. So if I'm seeing it, then I'm guessing a lot of other people must be seeing it as well. Unless you're only getting like 4 impressions, and that one of them is me.
Well, I mean, that has been a bit of a wake up there. We have made a change to our marketing because as much as we love to promote the Adido brand, ultimately is the people behind the brand in an agency. Yeah. And certainly we've taken a bit more of an approach of I'm a bit more of a face rather than the company as a face, because you post something as Adido, you might get 15 views on LinkedIn. If I post something, I might get 150 or 500. And certainly that's been a wake-up call. Secondly, we've had a really, really great PPC lady join us who has her own sort of side business, and she's shown some of the numbers about how if you promote yourself regularly enough, the algorithms will like you enough, and it will start to sort of snowball and or flywheel, or whatever it is. So that's been another learning and another thing we're trying to put into place.
Nice. So season 3, we'll find out how well it's gone.
Yeah, watch this space and don't get annoyed with me in the next 12 months.
Yeah, I often worry about that, and I think the echo chamber of the digital marketing, digital agency community makes it feel worrisome. But then I don't know if you know this, but according to just LinkedIn Sales Navigator, for example, people who on LinkedIn identify as a leadership person, so someone who owns or runs an agency in the English-speaking world or identifies as having English as a fluent language, how many people do you think there may well be? But just leaders of agencies.
Oh, goodness me. Hundreds of thousands, millions, I don't know.
Yeah, about 890,000. And that's not including any of the staff they may hire or any of those kinds of things. Obviously, take it with a semi-pinch of salt, because some of those people might actually be freelance or whatever else. But yeah. I remind myself of that every single time I post something which I worry that will annoy someone that they see it. And for those that do see me a lot and do see Andy a lot, you've got the mute button, mate. So that's it. So in the last year, I know that there's been a huge amount of changes in the last year from in the sector, from people-related things to tech-related things. What was one of the kind of big industry things that you've seen evolve in the last year, and what are your plans around either tackling or making an opportunity out of it?
I mean, going back 12 months is quite hard. I can't remember what we were thinking or doing this time 12 months ago, to be frank, and I struggle even to remember last week. But the thing that's been on everybody's lips in the last 3 months is the whole sort of the GPT, the AI thing. And I'm taking a bit more of an interest in it. There's been a lot of talk in the last month about how Google's now dead and everyone's going to be using Bing and the world's changed forever and this is groundbreaking stuff. That's total nonsense, absolute BS. People are not going to stop using Google tomorrow. But it definitely opens up a conversation of, well, what does the future look like? How do I present myself online? Going back to what we just said about me being more of a face or more of a voice, if we are asking more questions to the algorithms, then historically or to date, they look backwards, they don't look forward. And so I don't know how you get an AI that's authoritative on the future necessarily. So for me, like, that's part of this maybe longer term trade-off of there's a convenience with the AI, but it doesn't necessarily give you all the answers, and you want a human voice or human authority. So I'm pushing into that as a sort of hedging of bets. But it's definitely changed how I do some of my work in terms of putting presentations together. Like, I now no longer search on Google Images for half an hour to find that one picture. I just type it in a box, and it, you wait 60 seconds, it gives you 6 options, and that's fantastic. So do we use that for pushing content out? Do we use it for idea generation? I spoke to one of our team yesterday about they're a content writer and it's a new topic, right? So how do you approach that? Well, I might ask the tool first to give me some suggestions and some ideas, and it stops the blank piece of paper there being a bit more of a, right, where do I start? So I think there's going to be a big adoption this year, and adaptation. So how to think about how do we use these things, and are they actually beneficial? Are they actually worthwhile? And where do they fit in? And I don't think, again, there's so much polarization everywhere across the world, but it's either dead or it's completely alive, but it's going to be somewhere in the middle, and we're going to have to try and figure out, you as an SEO person or you as a designer or developer, like, can you just use this to save you half an hour? Can you use this to save you 3 days? Test and learn and play, and hopefully we'll figure it out. We're not going to lose thousands of jobs overnight, but the jobs will change.
Yeah, and I think the one thing which I'm seeing and hearing from a lot of agency leaders is there's a head in the sand kind of, it will be fine, everything's okay kind of mindset, when you're right, things aren't going to suddenly change. And I think, I agree with you, you're absolutely right, search and SEO and things like that aren't dead. I think that the way that we adapt to them is certainly going to need to change, and that will mean that roles will change. That will mean that clients will need different communication. Reporting will certainly change, and quite a lot of the repetitive doing tasks will soon essentially disappear because they can be done at scale and relatively automated. So the tools will certainly help with a lot of the heavier lifting. I think what worries me somewhat is the current nature of agencies being relatively bottom heavy in terms of the role base, and quite a lot of those roles are focused around doing essentially, and I'm sorry if you are an exec and you are listening to this, because if you love SEO and you love digital marketing, there is a good future ahead. But if you're doing repetitive tasks that are essentially advanced admin, then you need to upskill, and you need your team to upskill, because those roles won't exist. The availability of all of this scale is going to be open to everyone. I saw a really incredible app the other day where you give it a brief and it will design your UI in Figma for an app or something like that. Now, that means that the barrier to entry for a mum and pop bakery down the road to having their own app to order things is way lower than it ever used to be, which is fantastic. Kind of democratizes that tech that everyone kind of thought would happen in the short term. But that in of itself is going to change how clients want things and how clients react, and the agency is going to have to adapt. And I think you sound like you are thinking about it quite deeply, and I think that's great. And there's quite a lot of agency leaders that are just, nothing will change and we'll be fine.
And with every evolution comes loss. And if you lose agencies in a recession, or if you lose people to technology, then those people didn't adapt effectively. Is the way I'm trying to nicely say it, rather than going, "Well, you should bloody listen, mate." But I think there's a lot that we all have to learn through this change. In the same way that people went from print to websites, it's not a thing that happens overnight. You have to figure out what works for you, where the limitations of these tools are. Just because I can create an app from an idea that I have in my head doesn't mean it's going to be good. Doesn't mean it's actually going to work. So there's a whole load of things that seem good on the surface, but until we've actually played around with it and got a formed expert opinion, it's going to be hard to necessarily know if it's good or bad.
Agreed. And so, with that in mind, and with your the major changes in the agency in the last year, what do you think's been like a key thing that you've sort of personally or say professionally developed in the last that you've taken into that leadership position?
I mean, it's been hard. Again, we've had another year working from home, working remotely. I think we've now properly adapted to working as an agency pretty much remote first. So that's been a good learning, and trying to then think about how do we balance, people's convenience of working from home with actually working collaboratively and working as a team. So we've adapted that. I think we are pretty good on that aspect. I know some agencies have forced everybody back, and there's been issues with that, or gone completely remote. It's worked for us. As I say, going back to the idea of how do we promote us and promote our expertise with 20 years experience. I've started to look at automation of tools. So email automations, we're looking at, we've invested in a company called Force24, which is a good email marketing platform. How do we use that more effectively? How do we use LinkedIn more effectively? So there's automation tools which I've set up on that, which I'm playing around with, and it's been really good. To, I guess, go back to what we're saying as the general theme here is to streamline work rather than me sitting down and punching out 50 messages, type the message and get it out there. And just be a bit more proactive. I think, thing that we've learned, thing we want to do more of is to be more proactive, to try and find the people that we can really add value to. As I say, rather than just have the work that comes in. And I think that's something I've always wanted to do, aspired to do, never had the time. So use the tools to make that happen, and live in the 21st century rather than, doing everything about how it should be done properly. And that's not possible.
And how has that realization / reflection felt?
In terms of what? letting go of things or automating?
Yeah. So the automating of things naturally is quite hard when you want things to be done a specific and certain way, because you do have to compromise a lot. But the mindset shift around kind of letting go of some stuff, especially in leadership positions at an agency that you've built and it's long standing. How did it feel to sort of get to that point?
It is hard at first, but I guess I've been through this sort of evolution a few times before, where I was doing all of the SEO and then we had to hire people, and then, well, I'll do it a bit like this, and then you sort of have an epiphany one day and go, well, I can try and micromanage or stop them from doing certain tasks a certain way. Yeah, ultimately it's the output which is more important. So when we've had to work with teams remotely or do things differently, I've sort of got used to that discomfort, I guess, of it doesn't feel necessarily how I would do it, but trust the process and ultimately trust the people. And the people we have, as I say, we hired a few really good people last year. Very happy with the team as it currently is, and if things go slightly, of course we correct it rather than trying to control it from day on.
I think being comfortable in uncomfortable situations is sadly something that we all have to deal with as leaders in digital agencies. So fast forward an entire 12 months and we're talking again, hopefully. What's the core focus for Adido for the next 12 months? If we say, what's that one thing that I'm going to hold you to account for next year?
I guess a number of things. One is to keep up the content production, making sure that that's sustained and consistent, because I've had bursts like this in the past, and after 2 or 3 months, big project comes in, I need to work on this pitch, doesn't happen, etc. So number one, I'd like to just make sure that I am consistent and stick to the task. Number two, the thing we're going to be famous for is for Google Analytics 4, which we talked about before we pressed record, but we've done a huge amount of investment in learning about the platform, looking at the platform, understanding why it is the way that it is, the challenges that come with that, and trying to educate people about this isn't what you're used to, this is something very different, and here are the reasons why and what you're going to have to learn. And then the final one is really honing down on our travel niche and our travel sector, which we've picked up again on, I guess, in the last 6 to 12 months. We made, again, a reasonable investment in terms of trying to push into the sector pre-COVID. COVID happened. I mean, far too many people lost their jobs, unfortunately, with the fallout. Now things come back to normal. We've done some good content pieces. We've been featured in publications, trying to build an authority in that particular sector is one of our big goals. So we can be a general agency, or we can be very specific, and I think the specificness of what we've done and are doing will pay dividends in 12 months' time. So fingers crossed. Knowing how knowing you and your agency, I don't doubt that we'll be having a positive conversation on that next year. So thanks very much for coming for a second time. No worries, Chris. Thanks for inviting me, and thanks for everything you've done.
In the next episode, we'll be revisiting another agency leader and see how their last year has been. But in the meantime, thanks very much for listening.